I'm Dave Reaver. For the next hour, we're going to be presenting to you on video some of the most bizarre and unbelievable things that we have ever presented through television efforts. In my lifetime, I've known some war, and in my lifetime, I have seen some of the bizarre. I've known suffering, but I've never known of the bizarre. I've never known of suffering like you're going to hear about in this video. And I certainly promise you this, it is war. I also think you should know that we accept responsibility for saying up front that what you're going to see and hear is terrifying. I do not want to be responsible for allowing children in the room who are not prepared for this. Parents, please pay careful attention and do as I ask. Please don't allow children to watch this video alone. Today, we are compelled to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us God.
I've been out now for 14 years. I've only been able to laugh, and this is a serious statement. I've only been able to laugh out loud for about 10 years now.
As people remember these experiences, they gag, they are nauseous, their entire body remembers what it was like to be there, to see this, to participate in this, to have this done to them.
It's not a game. They really believe this. They believe Satan is on their side, and they will hurt you.
The rituals that we went through, they're horrendous, they're horrifying to anyone on the outside that even dares dream that something like this could take place.
The darkness of Satanism is spreading rapidly today, especially among young people. We see the graffiti symbols everywhere, the evil influences bearing down on teenagers, in the music, and in their lifestyles. The dimensions of this phenomenon have become alarming.
In this metroplex, it's my estimate that there's approximately 40,000 practicing Satanists in the metroplex. That does not include pagan organizations, Druids, Wiccans, which are of the right-hand path of witchcraft, not the left-hand path. Dabbling in the occult in its various aspects in this metroplex would have to be over 100,000 individuals. Now that's a conservative estimate.
It's not going on in the schools to hear them tell, they're wearing blinders. It's hard to get them to realize it's going on. The teachers are more cooperative because they will call. If they find notes or they hear something going on, they will call us. Our department is getting more involved in the last 8 or 9 months because we've been getting calls from people that said, we didn't know who to report these things to. There was like 7 or 8 large dogs, Dobermans, Shepherds, that had been killed and hung in a circle, their heads cut, blood drained. And the guy said, well, that happened 6 months ago, but we didn't know who to report it to. 85%
of the teenagers in high school in Western Europe have been exposed to hardcore Satanism. That's an unbelievable figure. Here in America, I do not believe those figures are that high, but I would venture to say that 40% of the kids.
Most teens involved in Satanism are dabblers. They wear the clothes, try a few rituals, and listen to the heavy metal bands. But some go further. Of these, the self-styled Satanists can be the most dangerous because they never join a cult. They are unpredictable and volatile. Sean Sellers murdered a store clerk for a thrill, then his own parents. Richard Ramirez, convicted as the Night Stalker killer, worked alone in the name of Satan.
It took the jury 22 days to find Richard Ramirez guilty of all 13 murders and 30 related felonies he was charged with. Ramirez declined to be present for the verdict. Thus ended the year-long trial of the Texas drifter accused of being the Night Stalker, the serial killer who once terrorized Southern California. All but one of the brutal murders took place in the summer of '85. The killer was dubbed the Night Stalker because he broke into his victims' homes and attacked them while they slept, shooting, stabbing, beating them to death. In some cases, wives were raped after their husbands had been murdered. Victims were robbed, survivors forced to swear to Satan, and sometimes pentagrams, symbols of devil worship, were left behind, scrawled on their bodies. Fear spread throughout Southern California as the death toll reached 13.
I'm very upset. It's frightening and I'm scared.
Everybody is real edgy.
We have diligently tried to lock all the doors and windows.
Gun sales doubled. A hunt was launched for the man in the police sketch. And Richard Ramirez was finally captured by an angry mob in an East Los Angeles Hispanic neighborhood. In court, Ramirez was defiant. A guard said Ramirez posted pictures of a victim in his jail cell, declaring, "There is blood behind the Night Stalker." Defense attorneys said Ramirez was a victim of mistaken identity, but witnesses and fingerprints tied him to the murders and ultimately sealed his conviction. Now the court will decide the fate of Ramirez, whether he's sentenced to death or life in prison.
The man known as the Night Stalker has been sentenced to death in California. Richard Ramirez was convicted of killing more than a dozen people in 1985. Ramirez got his nickname because he often entered victims' homes at night, murdering people as they slept. In court today, Ramirez read a twisted and rambling statement.
You don't understand me. You are not expected to. You are not capable of it. I am beyond your experience. I am beyond good and evil. Legions of the night breed. Repeat not the errors of night, Father, and show no mercy. I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all. That's it.
Today's sentence means Ramirez could die in the gas chamber for his crimes, but it carries an automatic appeal.
Self-styled Satanists are volatile and frightening. But what of those who join organized cults and become what is called traditional Satanists? Teenagers recruited into these cults are told of the thrills and untapped power they can achieve through Satan, and they are promised drugs and sex. But do they know what really awaits them in the end?
Once they get involved with this, they don't get out because they've taken part in so many criminal offenses that they can't just get up and walk away from it. They're trapped by their actions and they're blackmailed into staying in. Another thing is that there's a good deal of power.
It's an addiction. It's an addiction to evil. We all understand. Let's take it to the practical. For the public schools, teachers and counselors that are watching, they understand addiction. They understand how an addiction will move from marijuana to cocaine. In my own family, we watched an addiction in my second son move from marijuana into a $700 a day cocaine habit that nearly killed him. He was putting IV cocaine in his arm every 15 minutes during the day. And he didn't just start that way. And these people are into an addiction as well. They start by reading the Satanic Bible, start by little candle magic. They start by the Ouija board and getting in touch with the spirit. And they become addicted to the power.
There are no motion pictures that have come out that truly show what happens. They don't show the terror that is in the priest's eyes and in his mind. They don't show that same terror in the high priestess, nor in the participants. The power that is derived there. I met with a witch the other day, a high priest of the Wiccan craft, of the craft. And he found out who I had been. And he said, that's a problem I've got right now. He said, I don't have the power to go against people like who you were. He said, Lord, he said, you people could light bonfires and never walk up to it. And I said, that's right. And he said, you could kill me with a thought. And I said, no, with a word.
Is that right? I mean,
yeah. That's the power that someone who has mastered, who has become an adept in the craft. Now we're talking about a traditional Satanist, not a non-traditional idiot that is playing at this, but somebody that has made this their life's craft.
Recently, Dave interviewed Dr. Bob Sloan, a psychologist who's dealing extensively with people trying to escape the terrible after effects of satanic involvement.
Each sequence is drawn by a specific person, and I think the pictures illustrate the kinds of things we're talking about. The pictures are also drawn by the patient as they try to remember and try to recall what's happened. So drawing becomes a very important part of getting out and being able to firm up the puzzle that they're trying to put together. So they draw these pictures as a part of their recovery. As you can see here, there are certain steps that are followed. It's not a random kind of thing that they carry out on a whim. There's specific steps that they follow in preparing a small child to be initiated into the cult. They have to do this in this case because the child has been chosen. Oftentimes a baby is chosen for some reason to be the next leader of the clan. In this case, there was a boy who was chosen, and his mother, who herself was a child who was chosen when she was a baby, who is now grown up, now she's an adult, she has a son, she's preparing him. As you can see, the elements he's considered special, and it's the combination, the introduction of pleasure and pain. Here you can see that she is introducing pleasure at the same time. While she's doing that, she's putting things, objects, maybe a pencil, maybe a heated nail, or some other object that would create pain in him at the same time. As this awareness comes to her, she is in torment.
Looks like she's tried to rub it out.
Yes. There's a part of her that said, I don't want to say this, I don't want to admit it. There's another part of her that says, yes, it's the truth, I have done it. How could I? I'm so bad, I'm so evil.
My night of baptism and initiation, I was initiated by fire, both physically and spiritual fire. And the spiritual fire is, they summoned a demon forth, and it entered my body and set me on fire from the inside out, that I might know discipline and the power of the coven. And I've done it myself to other people. There are horrors that are unmentionables. That's why I say motion pictures can't hold a candle to it. If you will, imagine the young man that was taken off the streets of Matamoros. He would have been mutilated slowly, that his life force not leave him quickly, but slowly, as to increase the frenzy of the sorcerer committing the act. So the greater the pain, the greater the suffering, the greater cries that he gave out, the greater the power derived from his life force leaving his body. That's the belief.
Some of Dr. Sloan's patients also speak of the terrors of Satanism. These pictures were drawn by adults remembering things they had long ago repressed, things done to them as children when they had been forced to take part in cult rituals. The following is but one example of a satanic sacrifice.
This is a typical kind of ritual which involves the kidnapping of children. And in this case, you can see this ritual ceremony took place in a barn. Here are the bales of hay. It's an old barn. And in this case, you can see the cauldron, the boiling cauldron, the altar, the gold knives, all the elements are here, the robed members of the cult. In this case, the victim is a child, 4 or 5 years old, and the cult victim who drew this picture was still a child. And the sacrificial victims were, in this case, 2, a brother and a sister who had been kidnapped, and they had been seduced. And at this point, she reports that they weren't really scared. They'd probably been taken off of a playground somewhere and said, we're going to go have a birthday party or something. So they weren't scared. They're brought in ages about 7. You can see the cult leader here.